Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu from the Center for Policy Alternatives, where he is the big chief there. Very good evening to you, sir.
Very good evening to you, Faraz.
Now then, Dr. Saravanamuttu, tell us, what is the legal position about holding these elections, which everybody seems to want, excepting a few people in government seem to not want it. What's the legal position?
Well, as far as I understand, the Election Commission has now gone to the Supreme Court and asked them to say that, yes, if they do not get the money from the Finance Ministry, they cannot hold the election. And so the legal position has yet to be decided in terms of the franchise. The exercise of the people's franchise is a fundamental right. And that, of course, takes precedence over everything else. You know that in this country, we've had elections under a variety of circumstances, and these are not the most extenuating, arguably, of the circumstances. So it is the Supreme Court, I think, will declare, therefore, that this is a fundamental right of the people of this country, and a date of elections has to be fixed. If it can't be done today or tomorrow, nevertheless, the date has to be fixed.
When the Constitution obviously talks about our fundamental right to franchise and so on, does the Constitution not consider the possibility that there is no money to let the people enjoy that?
No, I don't think the Constitution does that. The government has said that, money can only be used for essential services. Now, is the Secretary to the Treasury, is the Minister of Finance, who also is the President of the country, turning around and telling us that elections are not essential, that money can only be used for essential things, and that elections are not essential. This is absurd. This violates the very democratic spirit of government and governance in our country.
And from somebody who was the vice president of the International Democrat Union. That's another story. But the Supreme Court, what can they do? Can they order the Treasury to open up the coffers? Is that the sort of thing they can do?
Well, I'm not 100% sure about this, but they certainly can say that, look, elections have to be held. In the past, under the Kumaratunga government, when provincial council elections were pending, they held the Vamba election, and that was the only one that they held. But we went to court, and we ensured that the others were held as well, so that, the court ordered that they be held. So, the court can come out with a very democratically friendly, decision, which says that elections are absolutely essential.
We could, I suppose, there could be a case to say that the government is not holding these elections because they fear the sort of clearing up of the people's wishes, that they're not a popular government. But having said that, how long can they go on with this sort of charade of postponing the elections for this, that, or other excuse?
Well, I hope that they don't think of sort of postponing these elections indefinitely. There is a school of thought that says that the president may well consider wanting to hold the elections once the IMF staff agreement can be implemented, and that's fully supposed to happen by the end of March. So, the government, yes, I think it is very fearful of what the election result is going to be. I do not believe that the IMF agreement in itself is going to be a drastic, radical game changer with regard to the result of these elections, but perhaps it will mitigate the anticipated and expected losses that the government might face.
And what are the repercussions of, for whoever, for let's say the finance minister, for not, passing this money? the elections commissioner, who may claim that his hands are sort of tied behind his back. But what are the repercussions for these people who are denying the people's mandate?
Well, so we'll have to go to court to find out, and the court will have to decide as to what the responsibilities are of the finance minister, of the secretary to the Ministry of Treasury, of the elections commissioner, and what responsibilities they have in respect of releasing the money for the elections. Also, what the consequences of not doing so are. But that's into the future at the present moment.
And Dr. Saravanamuttu, at the Center for Policy Alternatives, what would you like to see the role of the Elections Commissioner being now?
Well, I would like to see the role of the Elections Commissioner coming out and categorically stating that, look, if you cannot give us the money now, we can't hold the elections, okay, fine. But this is the date that we are setting for elections. Our constitutional duty is to uphold that fundamental, that sacred fundamental right of the suffrage and franchise. And this is the day that, therefore, we are going to hold the election. Therefore, then the government will have to find ways in which to release that money.
And in Sri Lanka, people sort of donate money quite freely and without any upper limit when it comes to political funding. What of a scenario? Is it possible that the Elections Commissioner suddenly receives money from all sorts of sources other than the Treasury and say, look, here you go, here's a pile of cash, have the elections?
Yeah, the elections have to be funded directly by the government of the country. We can't have a situation in which private donations are given to the election commissioner in order to hold elections. That would be absolutely devastating to the integrity of government and governance in this country.
Isn't it already devastating that various people donate, and companies and individuals donate money to the participants in this election?
Individuals, as members of the public and as citizens of this country, have every right to give money to a political party of their choice to campaign in an election. That's not the issue. Here is the issue saying that the basic mechanism for choice and change in a functioning democracy and election is being funded privately, which is just not on. It has to be the government of the country. It is always going to be our money, but it has to come through the proper channel.
I see what you say, but back in 2015, if I may ask you to cast your mind back to 2015, we had a Minister of Highways, one Kabir Hashim, who wrote to the then Finance Minister, one Ravi Karunanayake, asking him for funds to pay the contractors for road projects. The answer was that the Treasury then supposedly told the governor of the central bank to raise ₹1 billion, but they actually raised 10 billion. In this case, I don't know how much we require for this election. Can they not do that? Can they not raise the money?
I don't see any reason why not. They can raise the money. Yes, they can raise the money.
Because they could have a special bond, the holding of elections bond.
Perhaps they could do that. And I don't think that the International Monetary Fund is going to remonstrate against it as such, because after all, it's a fundamental right that is being supported in this respect. No, so I mean, the financial argument, I just don't buy as far as election is concerned. The argument that it will lead to greater political turmoil and all of that kind of thing, I don't buy. Either way, political turmoil could well be on the cards.
What of, talking of turmoil, have you had reports of even the beginnings of electoral-led violence?
No, not really. We don't have any reports of any major incidents of that sort. But it could well pick up as we go along. Because, I mean, the point about this election is this, that yes, it is a local government election. And as a consequence, being a local government election, you don't have to have a change of government or anything like that. However, it is the first occasion on which the people of this country, since the Aragalia, get a chance to voice their political opinion. And that is significant.
What's social media doing? When you're monitoring social media at the CPA, what sort of feedback are you getting?
Well, I mean, what we are getting is that, yes, there are those who are very strongly and advocating holding of elections. There are those who defend the government's position with regard to not holding elections, but there are very few like that. But the campaigning is going on. I think what is dominating social media at the present moment is the SJB hitting back at the JVP and talking about their economic policy, and the JVP responding and saying that, look, get up to speed. That's a very old piece of news.
You've preempted my next question, which is going to be about the sort of apparent insecurity of the opposition with the SJB having a go at the MPP or the JVP and the other way around. But surely, don't you believe that the role of the opposition, the collective opposition now, should be as one focused on having these elections done?
No, absolutely. And I think that may well happen, in that there might well be demonstrations in Colombo demanding that elections are not postponed and that they are held. Yeah, there must be one on the basis of, look, all things, we will sink our differences in order to ensure that elections are held.
Do you think it's a little bit sort of childish, for want of another word, that when Mr. Premadasa is quoting, surely his research team must be up to, on the ball and must know that these things about the private sector and the ownership of property done by supposedly said by the JVP is coming from the 1980s. Surely, isn't that a little bit childish or unprofessional?
Well, you might say that on the grounds that the leader of the opposition should be quoting information that is up to speed and contemporary and relevant. But on the other hand, he may well conclude that saying this about the JVP might actually reinforce people's fears from that period that they will behave like this. And I think at the end of the day, what it is an act of desperation, perhaps, on the part of the SJB, serious concern that they might well be losing the middle class vote, such as there exists, to the NPP. And this is a scare tactic to try to retrieve it.
On that note, let's go for a short break in which we take a peek at this evening's headline news from that wonderful primetime news team with Mariam and her team. We'll see you on the other side of the break, shall we?
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali. TV1, TV for life.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you. Experience the best in healthcare at Durden's Hospital. We continue to evolve into a purpose-built hospital built to deliver world-class care. Trusting us for all your healthcare needs. Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
Tear gas and water cannons fired at SJB protest in Colombo. Tear gas fired at JJB rally in Kurunegala. Election Commission tells Supreme Court that local government election will likely not go ahead as planned due to reasons beyond its control. Complaint filed with Bribery Commission over deal that led to the payment of 770 million rupees for missing crude. Sri Lanka's exclusive marine geospatial data at risk of falling into the hands of foreign nations. Kimbulawala street food vendors asked to leave. Mitsubishi and Thai say to close offices in Sri Lanka.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Dardens Hospital, dedicated to you. Experience the best in healthcare at Dardens Hospital. We continue to evolve into a purpose-built hospital, built to deliver world-class care. Trusting us for all your healthcare needs. Dardens Hospital, dedicated to you.
TV1. TV for life.
Experience the best in healthcare at Dardens Hospital. We continue to evolve into a purpose-built hospital, built to deliver world-class care. Trusting us for all your healthcare needs. Dardens Hospital, dedicated to you.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And welcome back to Newsline Zoom. I'm in conversation with Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu from the CPA. Amidst growing controversy here and worry in Sri Lanka due to the fact that the government of the day appears to be vacillating in terms of having an election for the local government part of it. Dr. Sara, this afternoon, we had people protesting. We had water cannons and the inevitable tear gas being used as well at Technical Hande in Maradana. Will these, generally speaking, will these protests make a difference? Will it move a president who almost sort of acting as though he's got Asperger's syndrome?
Well, I don't know about any of that, but people in this country need to come out and demonstrate that they are concerned about their being robbed of the opportunity of exercising their franchise. They need to come out and protect their fundamental rights. And so whether it is a political party who's asking them to come out and do it, or organizing these demonstrations or whatever, I think it is incumbent on all of us Sri Lankans to make sure that we will not lose in any way our fundamental right to the franchise. So as to whether the government will accede and capitulate and say, yes, okay, we can give you the money to hold the election or whatever, I think you need sustained pressure in terms of public demonstrations on the government in order to achieve that. Sustained pressure.
What of the possibility that the government may resort to the almost liberal use of the PTA when arresting protesters?
Well, I hope and pray that they don't. I mean, they don't, and that they recognize and they acknowledge that they have pledged to repeal and replace that most draconian piece of legislation. You know, they have to resist the temptation of using that because it only gives them a particularly bad name. It only reinforces their authoritarian credentials. And it only tries to snuff out whatever we have left of our democracy. So I hope and pray that the PTA is not used, and that indeed that they fully recognize and acknowledge the right of people to demonstrate in support of the fundamental right to the franchise. That, at the end of the day, is what we are fighting to save. Yes, we have a problem of the economy. We have a problem in terms of politics. But overall, they make up a serious crisis of governance. And postponing elections only compounds and aggravates that crisis of governance.
The IMF was quite clear that they foresee a government that has the mandate to carry out these sort of much needed reform and changes. Do you think, Dr. Sara, that this may be one of the reasons why, apart from the collective agreement of our lenders, but do you think that this may also be one of the reasons why the IMF agreement is sort of dragging along rather slowly?
Well, I'm not aware of the IMF making an explicit condition that elections ought to be postponed or ought to be held. My understanding is that the delay with regard to the IMF staff agreement being implemented is because of getting the proper assurance from the Chinese with regard to the haircut, and that we are now told that, even if China does not give us a haircut, there is a possibility of the IMF agreement being implemented by the end of March. So, I know a lot of people are talking about the elections as if they are a condition of one kind for the IMF agreement. My understanding, my knowledge is that that's not the case.
Would it be an infringement on our sovereignty if the IMF and so on these lenders insisted on a sort of a solid political platform before they can lend us money?
The point here is this, is that no one is going to lend you money without laying down conditions, because after all, that money belongs to someone. It has been given to the IMF by other countries, and no one would want to see their money go down the drain. Now, yes, if there are political conditions made, that certainly might seem like the IMF is dictating to us how we should run our country. But, that whole sort of very rigorous notion of sovereignty, that, you don't make political conditions, etc., sort of belies the question of why you're going to the IMF in the first place. You're going to the IMF because of basically misgovernance, So the IMF has never sort of openly demanded political conditionality. Rather, it has talked about the economic conditionality. And so I don't think that the IMF is going to suddenly turn around and say, look, you have to hold that election or else we can't give you the money. The IMF, nevertheless, will maintain that they will like to deal with the government, that is both legal and legitimate, and that has the support of the people of Sri Lanka.
Do you think that in all of this, this whole Aragalia, Sri Lanka's sort of Arab Spring, if you like, has been a waste of time?
No, it most certainly has not been a waste of time. It has shown us what Sri Lanka could be, insofar as it was a mass demonstration that was not ageist or sexist or any of that. It was all the ethnicities, all the religions, all the peoples of Sri Lanka coming together, fed up because of the lack of accountability, the institutionalization of impunity within our system of government and governance. Furthermore, they got rid of the Rajapaksas, which was their explicit objective. They got rid of Basil, they got rid of Mahinda, they got rid of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Well, they got them out of government. They may not have got them out of politics, but they got them out of government. And that was no mean feat at that time. So certainly, the systemic changes that the Aragalia people demanded have yet to happen. And I think, in a sense, it's a story that's in a state of being, a state of becoming, rather than in a state of being, because it is not over yet.
Like you say, the Rajapaksas may have been removed from the front line, but they certainly become puppeteers now. And they are pulling the strings from the background. The 134 people who voted to appoint this man as the president, that says as much. It's their party.
Yeah, so that is why, we need an election for the people in this country to very clearly and categorically saying who they want in their politics, who they want to represent them, who they want out, who they want, brought to justice for having stolen money from this country and all of that. So it is for the people to decide. And I hope that, at the end of the day, that the Rajapaksas are defeated politically at the ballot box rather than in any other way.
Do you have any indication that the Rajapaksas, whoever they may be, may well be prosecuted successfully before a court of law?
Well, I think you probably need a change of government because the government at the present moment is supported by the Rajapaksas. I hope that the next government that has the popular legitimacy of the people of this country behind it will indeed make very serious and meaningful attempts to remove this culture of impunity that is a cancer on our body politic. We need to go after them. It's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. We may not recover all the assets. As far as I know, no one internationally has. But we need to demonstrate, the government needs to demonstrate to the people of this country that it is sincere in wanting to get that money back.
Dr. Saravanamuttu, thank you very much for being on Newsline Zoom. It's been a great pleasure having you on the program. We hope to welcome you on our longer program during the course of the week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's the way it was on Newsline Zoom this evening. Take care. It's now time for the primetime news. And as always, God bless you all.